All right, it's the KwinnPop podcast. I'm Peter W. Dawson, and I'm joined by...
You know who it is, Soulful Lordy himself, James Bullock.
Oh, yeah. How you doing today, James?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I got a little fear, though, running through my veins, so, I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared for, I think, good reason, though.
Yeah. Well, James, just because it's called Black Friday doesn't mean it's actually a bad thing.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, It is in America.
That's the real Yuletide. Good times. So we are here to talk about video games, television, and movies. Although it's going to be, well, we'll get to that. But let's start with video games. So the reason we were talking about spooky stuff is the game we're going to talk about today is actually Friday the 13th, the game. Now, this came out worldwide digitally on May 26th of this year, but it's only just this last October gotten a more formal release.
Right, got a disc release. Which,
yeah.
Goes across PC, Xbox One, and PS4.
Yeah, I think it was originally just PC, but then they did the console versions. It was basically staggered.
Right. In the same way like a Dead by Daylight was, but Dead by Daylight was strictly PC originally, and then they ported it to consoles.
Yeah. And it was a Kickstarter game.
Right.
Because, what is it? I think the total ended up being 1.2 million or something?
Yeah, and it went up fast, too. It was a really fast campaign.
Right, because, it had a backer kit that was separate from the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter itself made like 800,000, and then the backer kit made another 400,000. So they ended up creating Friday the 13th, the game. And it's pretty much what you might expect if you're familiar at all with how horror games have been working lately, especially multiplayer horror games. Because we've seen a few games like this now. And the basic premise is one player is the killer, in this case, Jason, one of many versions of Jason, which we'll get to in a second. And everyone else plays the campers at Crystal Lake or whatnot, who have to successfully try to evade Jason and run off into the night. Meanwhile, Jason, of course, has to kill everyone because it's Jason.
It can be up to 7 counselors, too. So 7 players are trying to get away from Jason, and there's one Jason going around town trying to kill people, which is a really big difference in terms of number when you compare it to games that's similar to, like I said, Dead by Daylight, which you had 4 human players and then 1 killer. And then even if you want to go like beyond the horror scope, but in the same vein, same genre of that, a game like Evolve, where you had 1 monster and then the 4 human players trying to capture it. So
it's all basically the same idea. It's player versus player, but on a massive scale.
Right.
And it's one versus all, and obviously they give the one quite a few advantages. I mean, in this case, you can't kill Jason; you can only ever just stun him.
You can kill him, but
really?
Yeah, you can. You've never seen it.
No, I've never seen it. I have.
Wow. Okay.
You probably have more experience than I do, though. So I mean.
No, not really, because I just only played it since it came out on disc. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I played it a bit digitally when that came out, but I mean.
Right. But no, it was funny because this was probably the end of last week, and I was playing. No, maybe the beginning of this week, I was playing with a group of people, just random people, and we were getting close to, I believe, like maybe 10 minutes deep, and I was running around trying to get a battery because, as you said, one of the things you have to do is escape and try to get away from Jason. So one of the things you can do is put a car battery in your car, and then you have to get gas and car keys, of course, and got to find all this stuff and put it together and install it in the car. So I saw somebody had dropped the car battery, and I went running for it. And then all of a sudden the screen flashed to Jason on his knees and a person playing as Tommy Jarvis, and they kill Jason, and the game ends. But I don't see it, which is terrible because the camera for some reason goes back to me trying to run around, so it's like a big slow motion moment. And I never actually see him kill Jason, but I see the point where they start to kill him, and then it tells you Jason's been defeated, and then the game just ends. But it's a complicated little method. Like you have to get his dead mother's sweater, and then somebody has to be playing Tommy Jarvis, and it's you have to work together, which is funny because, like I said, we were a bunch of random people, but for some reason it all came together. So you can kill Jason, but it's hard to do it. Very hard to do it. It's very luck based.
Yep. Yeah, well, I was going to point out, just real quick for anyone who's not fully familiar with the Friday the 13th films, basic premise, of course, is at Camp Crystal Lake, an undead horror named Jason, who was in fact basically the resurrected soul of a kid who drowned there because the camp counselors were too busy having sex.
Yeah.
It was actually sex, right? It wasn't sex and
yeah. They were goofing off and having sex and completely ignoring the fact that this kid was drowning.
I think they were also smoking pot. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah. Just all the vile things of the world.
Basically, take anything you would, the average person might consider at least slightly sinful, and just throw it all together.
Throw it all together in a massive pot and take it to the most extreme. That's the best way to do it.
Yep, and so as a result, Jason basically becomes this horrible zombie man who cannot be stopped, and wants to murder all the camp counselors. I won't get into all the plot because there's more to it than that, obviously, with the movies.
Right. Especially when we evolve further beyond Crystal Lake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the boat that leaves Crystal Lake and kind of gets to Manhattan. But yeah, and so Tommy Jarvis, just to explain, he's Corey Feldman's character. From I believe it's 4 through 6.
Yeah, maybe 3, but it might be 4. I know it ends at 6. I know his last appearance is at 6, but either it's 3 or 4. He's the first time we see Corey Feldman as Little Tommy. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he first appears in the final chapter, which is the 4th movie.
Okay, you're right.
And there's 10 of them. I know, right? The final chapter was movie 4 of 10. Actually, no, that's not true. There's more than that, but I mean, 10 is basically where the original franchise stopped, and then you get Freddy versus Jason, and
Nightmare on Elm Street has the same problem, but not as grandiose. We have this. We have Freddy's dead, but it's not that many movies after that compared to Jason. Compared to Jason going to hell and everything else. So.
Yeah, they're really weird about that. But yeah, so Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman's character, shows up, and it, much like in the movie, how he was played as like the only one who might be able to actually kill Jason. Tommy Jarvis is a character you can summon through gameplay events, who starts out with a shotgun, a pocket knife, and a first aid spray, all of which are super handy to have because you start out with nothing.
Yeah. If you're just a regular counselor, you start off with absolutely nothing. You have to go around the map trying to find these items, and everything's randomly generated. That's the thing. It's never the same thing, never in the same place, which makes all the games dynamic and makes it that much more fun because you never know what you're going to get.
Well, yeah, and then there's like the most important thing is Tommy Jarvis you have to complete certain conditions, and then when a player dies, they have a chance to be resurrected as Tommy Jarvis once he's been summoned. Right. So, and yeah, there's multiple ways because you can just escape through a car, you can survive until the police show up, and I think then they shoot up Jason. And there's all these different things you can do.
Yeah, they'll shoot Jason if he gets close enough to the area where they're located, and then he'll sit up and walk away. Right. It's just like the Undertaker and Kane. I love when he sits up and walks away.
Well, yeah, it's a good thing you brought up Kane too, because don't forget the guy who did the motion capture for the game is the same guy who did motion capture for Jason in parts. I think it was in 5 of the movies. Kane Hodder, I believe his name is pronounced. It might be Hodder.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's Hodder because it's 2Ds, but look, I have some knowledge of these films. I've seen them all. But obviously I'm struggling to remember certain things, and I don't want to just sit here looking at Wikipedia all day.
Right. No. They want us to talk about the game. They don't really care.
Yeah. Well, what's great is that just the fact that you can play as multiple versions of Jason, right? Because you have like the ones from all the different movies, as well as the Uber Jason from Jason X, and so there's
it's also tied into a leveling up system too. So you can't just like automatically play any Jason that you want. Yeah, which I'm okay with. I appreciate the fact that it's not pay to win kind of style where you actually have to play the game to level up to actually play Jason. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, they didn't just make it so you could just pay to unlock all the things, which I mean they easily could, and it's true though. I do appreciate that they didn't do that because there's been a lot of controversy lately about paying to win. So
and I can attest to that, especially one game that I'm currently playing that's in beta. So there you go.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
For the sake of simplicity, we won't mention its name, but yeah, overall, I'd call it pretty decent. I mean, I think the one issue is always going to be because it's a little more expensive than a typical game with this much content would have. Because I mean, it's
or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah, it's still ultimately kind of thin. Although but like what they do have is very good.
Yeah. My thing is the fact that when everything works right, it's a great game.
Absolutely.
Like that's the thing. It's a fantastic experience. It has the Friday the 13th atmosphere that you would have wanted from a Friday the 13th game. And like I said, when everybody's on point, everybody's playing well together, and everything's clicking, it's a great game. But it's the same thing like with Dead by Daylight, where after you've done this thing X amount of times, it becomes the same thing over and over again. And I know that the developers have been promising like new maps, new modes, and even a single player mode where you could play as Jason more often, because that's one big problem too, that unlike Dead by Daylight where you could host a game and you would automatically be the killer, in Friday the 13th it's randomly generated as well who becomes Jason. So while it says you have like a 1 out of 8 chance of becoming Jason in any game, the probability of you being Jason in a game probably is maybe 1 out of every 20 to 25 games.
Yeah. There's just, it's the constant, when you're heavy, entirely multiplayer, essentially, it heavily focuses on if it's really balanced, and there's always going to be debates on that. And
yeah, I know a lot of people are upset now. Like, they feel that they've kind of messed up Jason. They nerfed Jason a little bit, and yeah, if you go like on the message boards for the game, a lot of people say Jason's been nerfed since the game was released. And I haven't, as I said, I hadn't played it since the disc version came out. So have you played it since like the past few updates to see if there's any difference, or have you even been able to play as Jason to find out?
No, I think I tried to check it out earlier this week because I knew we were going to talk about it.
Right.
And I just played through 2 games, and of course I played as my favorite counselor. Hey, can you guess which one my favorite counselor is?
Oh, let me think. I'm going to go with the guy with the varsity jacket.
No, it's Chad Kensington.
The sweater.
Chad,
sweater,
thank you very much. My papa owns the lake.
Yeah, Chad, that every time they do the opening scene, he looks back in fear of Jason coming his way.
Because he's got the most hilarious expression, and he runs around with the damn sweater around his neck. Yeah. Chad Kensington.
Chad actually has great stats, though. Like, I want to play with Chad more often because every time I look at him,
he is genuinely pretty well statted, but he's just such a he's so clearly the guy who should be killed that the audience will cheer when he dies.
Right. And that's one thing I understand is a Kickstarter game. It's not, high budget. Yeah. But I would have loved to have like some clothing damage to some of the counselors, especially like with Chad, like losing his sweater if he breaks free from Jason or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you see some of the early glitches?
Oh yeah, I've actually had a couple of glitches, but nothing too major. Like the funniest one for me was I got into a tent, and when I tried to get out, like the guy just stood straight up and like glided out of the tent, and then the camera wouldn't move. So like when I got back in the tent, like everything just started working again. But initially I was just like stuck and I'm running around and the camera refuses to move and the guy is like in one position. And then there are a couple of times where I've died and like if Jason hacks me, like literally just hits the R2 button and just chops me down. Mm-hmm. My guy will die standing up and won't fall over.
Yeah. No, one of my favorites was, I can't remember which Jason's is, the one where he has the fire poker type thing.
Okay.
Like, the kind of spirit thing. I think
it's that's one of the ones that you could pretty much play at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the early ones. I can't remember which one he is, because, my encyclopedic knowledge is not, like I said. Yeah. You want to talk about Star Wars or Star Trek? I might be able to do something there. Friday the 13th, hey, I remember how many films there are. Anyway, but like when he does one of the fire poker or the spear ones, he'll throw the guy onto it, but so he's kind of left like the dead body's left sticking through the poker as it's stuck in the ground, pointy head up.
I've seen that one. I've seen that.
Have you seen the version where it glitches and instead of being shoved down to the poker, it just ragdolls away?
No.
Yeah, like the body gets thrown onto the tip and then immediately bounces off and just flies off Team Rocket style. Jason made us blast off again.
Reminds me, not to get off subject, but that reminds me of Horizon Zero Dawn. I think I have a video of it on my YouTube channel when I was fighting Thunderbird, and I like yanked it. Mm-hmm. with the grappling hook into an explosive line, and it just propelled for some reason way off into the distance. And I actually could run and find it. It was just the craziest thing. But in terms of like propelling and ragdolling, I've actually had that one thing happen while spectating, where I watched a counselor get choked. And when she fell, for some reason, she bounced into the air and flew against the other side of the room. So
yeah, well, ultimately,
it's some funny glitches there, but yeah, that's about. I haven't seen too many, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's way less glitchy than it used to be.
Right.
Because when it was super glitchy at launch, it was probably launched too early ultimately, but they wanted to get it out in time, and it still worked fine enough. I mean, it may sound like I'm ragging on them, and I probably am a bit, but it was fine. It's just ultimately if you think it's overpriced or not for the content available. But it's definitely a very functional game, I think.
Yeah. The only problem, to me, like the biggest problem outside of if you try to go from a gameplay perspective, if you go beyond that, my biggest problem is connectivity issues in the terms of since the game makes you wait until it's all over, until either everybody dies or everybody escapes or a mixture of both, that you can't leave the game until everything's totaled up, so you can't get your all experience points until the game is actually over, until that round is over. And there are times where either it will time out, the connection will time out, or people will quit because things are not going their way. And you will lose any progress from that match, no matter how significant it is. So I really don't understand how that hasn't been fixed yet.
Yeah.
That's a big problem to me. Like, especially when you have a game that's based on a lot of progress. Like, if you don't have enough experience points and you won't level up, you can't play as these different Jasons, or you can't upgrade your counselors, which is detrimental to your game if you want to play as more than just what the base game is offering. But other than that, like I said, when everything's clicking, I really enjoyed the game. I'm surprised that, to me, it's as functional as it is. Of course, I'm coming in a little bit later, and I think that's one of the best things about coming in later with something like this, especially a lot of Kickstarter games where they are rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of waiting, being patient, and I think it paying off.
Well, yeah, sometimes coming in later can be a good thing. Like with Mass Effect 3, you can have the impact ending. Or it can not pay off, like if you come in late for Assassin's Creed Unity and the game still isn't fixed.
Well, Mass Effect 3, not much patching helped that.
The extended ending cut did help, I'm sure. I know people who had much better experiences.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would say, would you recommend the game?
I would recommend the game on sale.
Yeah.
Honestly. If you can get it for about $20, I say it's a good deal.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's like, was it 40 at full price?
Yeah, 40 full price.
Yeah. So,
and maybe I would change that. Once they add more maps, they add the single player mode that they've been promising, and maybe a couple other modes. I would change that opinion. But right now, as a base game, I would have to say 20 at the most.
Yeah. It's 20 to 30 easy.
Yeah,
but it's still fine. I mean,
yeah, it's a very fun game. Like I said, once everything works right, when it's clicking, it's a great game. It's got great atmosphere, and even better is when you have people that, even though they're playing kind of goofy, they're still playing, and especially when they start playing, they start doing voice acting and start doing like weird voices and stuff. I've had a couple of those that you can't keep your face straight because people are like really getting into these characters, and that kind of stuff, it works, which.
Look, Chad just has to make it out because Chad is the hero. My papa owns the lake.
Oh, Chad.
Yeah.
Oh, Chad.
Chad is the best.
Chad's the best.
So, Joe credit for Chad Crichton. Anyway, moving on.
How well would Chad do in this universe that we're about to talk about?
Oh, my... okay, you want to know who I think Chad grew up into? So, okay, well, I'll just put that aside for a second. How well would Chad do in this universe? Because I'm going to bring it up, I'm sure at some point here. So, and we're going to talk about another Netflix show because we're still in that weird area where not all the shows are done yet. Like, we have a couple of miniseries we want to talk about. They're like 2 episodes away from being done.
Yeah, we got a couple that's almost wrapping up, especially I think Walking Dead has got 2 more episodes, right?
Yeah, we could probably talk about that when that happens. And of course, The Gifted is another one that's on our list.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just started.
Yeah, that'll be a good one to talk about once that's done. Yeah. But we're going to talk about The Punisher, which, as of this recording, only came out about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
On November 17th, so it's still fairly fresh. I haven't seen the ratings, or because I mean, Netflix is hard to track anyway. Like I know Stranger Things did gangbusters. It did like
Oh yeah.
15.8 million,
Oh yeah.
which is like, oh yeah, that's what I want to hear. Because they've greenlit Stranger Things 2 since we last talked about a Netflix show.
3?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Stranger Things 3. Sorry, no, Stranger Things 2 too. We're just gonna keep adding twos.
Just add 2 to everything.
Yeah. Well, what comes after 11? 12. Just added a 2.
Just added 2. There you go.
Oh snap. Anyway, so The Punisher, this is a really weird place in the Marvel because it's a spin-off of season 2 of Daredevil.
Right. Which caught me by surprise because I stayed away from the trailers and everything, so I was kind of expecting it maybe to be a reboot, but then I found out everything.
It's just a flat-out continuation. Just once again, they don't mention too many of the events of the previous series. No one ever once mentions the immortal ninjas. I mean, they mentioned a couple. Like, I don't even think they mentioned Daredevil. Like,
not a bit, not once.
Like, Frank doesn't even say, "How's Red doing?"
Yeah, it was nothing.
I know, like, that was probably one of the more glaring things with me just right off the bat, because we're going to talk about some stuff we liked and didn't like, I'm sure, but that I don't know if that really annoyed me, but it's one of the things like, why do a shared universe if you're not going to acknowledge it, you know?
Exactly, and even like at the beginning where we kind of had like the flashbacks, like pseudo flashbacks and cutscenes at the beginning, I was thinking that once I found out, I was like, okay, this is a Daredevil spinoff. Like, where is that moment where we see his struggle with Daredevil? Like, where is that? And of course, there's nothing.
No, we got flashbacks but we never, they never cover the fact. Oh yeah, he killed this one guy in season 2 at Daredevil, and we see flashbacks to that character before he was killed, but we never see flashbacks to him killing the guy.
Actually happening, yeah.
Which is
really weird.
I'll totally. I think we both kind of agree it's glaring that they didn't do that, but I mean, in general, I quite like this series. It's my roommate in particular. I'm not gonna say his name because he hates it when I do that. But he said it was one of his favorite Netflix shows, and I kind of agree with some of his points as to why.
Okay.
I don't know if I would call it the best Marvel one.
I've seen that being thrown around a lot, which is crazy because we had the same problem with Thor.
Oh, I know.
I think it's one of those things where it's just the most recent thing is in everyone's mind, and of course that's the first thing to think about. Of course, it's the best, but
yeah. Well, Thor is definitely one of the funniest Marvel movies, at least. So, like, if in terms of superhero comedy, I could totally see that. Like with Punisher, I have a point I want to make.
Okay.
Do you mind if I just go into that? Because this is the thing I agree with. Okay,
go ahead.
But all these Netflix shows, except for Defenders with Marvel, are 13 episodes. And the common problem that they've had is around the middle of the season, they have an episode that's kind of a lull.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Daredevil, in between, like in the episode where Foggy confronts Matt about being Daredevil, well, good character work is still kind of a lull.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I will defend that episode, but I'll totally also admit it's a lull of sorts. And Jessica Jones, for example, the one where the whole Kilgrave thing just gets sidetracked because Simpson just decides to go crazy.
I was just about to bring that up.
That was
the first thing I thought about was that episode with Jessica Jones. Like when you said it, that was the first thing I thought about.
Or Luke Cage when it turns out when he goes through his existential crisis after being shot.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Fist. I don't even know if there's a specific lull I can mention in Iron Fist because I didn't.
Yeah,
like
I think
Fist.
I think that was a lull period.
Yeah. Well, no. I've got it. The lull is between when Ward gets committed and Ward comes back because Ward was one of the best characters in that season.
Okay, there you go.
If there's two things I'll defend about Iron Fist, it's Ward and Colleen Wing.
Okay, yeah.
Even then, Colleen Wing disappointed me later on.
Right.
Because Bakuto is the worst villain ever. Oh my god. It's like...
Okay, not to jump ahead, but are we going to just stick with that when we get to the next part of this audio?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to stick to that proclamation. That
No. Yeah, I would, trust me, I'm going to stick with that. But I want to get back to Punisher. The biggest lull I felt that it had was the first episode.
Okay.
Right? Like, I felt like they got the lull out of the way, because I don't know, what did you think of the pilot episode?
Yeah, it felt disjointed.
Yeah.
Like, that was the thing. It felt really disjointed. Like, it had a good ending. That was the best part.
Well, except for the music choice.
Yeah.
overly angry, generic Rush heavy metal.
Yeah.
It felt too on the nose.
Yeah.
But I did love how it's like the entire episode is essentially like Frank Castle has given up murdering people because he's killed everyone.
Right.
He's literally killed all his enemies, so he gives up killing, and then the entire episode is building up to him going to killing again. The problem is it's still like a 53-minute episode, so I mean it takes forever to get to that point.
Yeah, because my thing is like it felt like one of those episodes, and I think that was the biggest thing when it felt like an episode that should have happened midway through the season. Which is like funny when you say that. Like we had these midway lulls during each Netflix season, and this felt like an episode that should have happened midway through the season, which was the pilot, and then at the very end it gets pretty good, but it's almost like. It's kind of ridiculous too. Like this is how easily he's drugged back into this whole thing, and
well, it wasn't that easy. He constantly turned down being helpful until it was like.
No, I mean I'm talking about like once he went on his streak. Once he went on the streak at the very end.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, okay, I understand what I have to do, but it is like no second thought whatsoever, like how this might mess him up.
Well, look, mobsters who drove 3 wannabe gangsters to murder who didn't really seem like the murdering type.
Right.
I mean, it's like, okay, if these guys are scary enough to do that to these guys, they clearly have to be put down.
That's true.
I don't know.
But I mean, it was just like he was trying to live such a docile, clean life.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, gotta go back to work, gotta go back to killing. Like no thought whatsoever, because I mean throughout the entire episode he kind of like made sure he stayed out of all of these. He knew things were going on, and he tried to keep his mouth shut and stay away from it.
Yep.
And then it was like, okay, one of these situations where I have to do something, but it wasn't even a second thought of how this might endanger his secret life that he's living now.
You know what this reminded me of?
What?
I'm going to make a obscure reference that you'll probably still appreciate. So there's a Mad TV skit from the 90s.
Okay.
Where Will Sasso plays Steven Seagal in Kung Fu the movie.
Okay.
Right? And so at one point it's like he comes in, and if you've never seen the TV show Kung Fu, Kwai Ching Caine is supposed to be like this Buddhist monk who tries not to fight, but he also happens to be a martial arts master. And so this guy comes up, starts being really rude to him in a bar. He's like, I'm just trying to walk the stupid path of peace, but now you're forcing me to walk the path of pieces. And then he rips the guy's arm off.
I've probably seen that. I don't remember off the top of my head. I definitely remember Will Sasso playing Steven Seagal on Mad TV. I definitely remember that. So
that was one of his better.
I probably have seen that before. That's good.
Yeah,
that's a great way of putting it. That really is.
That's really what happens. Is Punisher's just trying to be like a good guy, and then it's like, hey, here I go killing again, rip off arm. Because he decapitates a guy later in the season, rather brutally too.
Yeah, and uses it as a giant grenade practically.
Well, it's like the movie, to make another reference, it's like the movie The Crow. You want to see the hero get revenge on the scum of the earth, but then when he gets this brutal, almost unfair level of revenge, you kind of feel bad for the bad guys.
No, actually, I don't. I really didn't throughout the whole time when you get to especially the last few episodes, when it really gets barbaric.
Oh my God, Billy!
It's really, and the entire time I'm not really feeling bad for any of the villains that are getting what they're getting, but my thing is more so I'm feeling bad for him just because, like, dude, man, you probably broke your hand at least a couple times during this.
So, yeah. Sorry, did you have a thought you wanted to finish?
Oh, no. Just the amazing brutality they got away with on this season.
Oh, so much. So the basic themes of this season are, like, Punisher. It turns out there's Frank Castle, the Punisher. He thinks he's killed everyone, but then his old connections to a CIA incident in was it Kandahar?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, like with a secret operation, get him involved in this level of conspiracy, and which includes the Department of Homeland Security, a major member of the CIA. His codename is Agent Orange, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too many more details about that character.
Yeah, that's as far as we need to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that sees him caught in a web of intrigue, including them. Some of his old war buddies get caught up in this, as does Karen Page from Daredevil. She returns.
Right.
She's probably one of the main connections, although we see a few others. And then Yeah, like some of his old war buddies. And we also get, oh man, we get a lot of straw man political people on both sides.
Yeah.
We get a straw man NRA member, but if you hate the fact that that's in there, don't worry. There's also a very straw man liberal senator.
Yeah.
Who's very anti-gun.
Yeah.
And
I love the fact that at one point where it's pretty much the biggest part of his entire existence in the series is him being a complete coward.
Yep.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. It's like you can't play things purely as black or white. You can't.
Right.
And I mean, this is the problem. And they demonstrated this pretty effectively with the stereotypes. I mean, there's a reason why stereotypes exist in narratives sometimes.
Yeah.
I was going to mention though. You asked me earlier who you think Chad would be in The Punisher.
Okay.
I'll tell you exactly who he would be. There's a character who shows up in episode 1, and you think is going to be a recurring antagonist. To die in episode 2. That's Chad. You think he's gonna matter a lot more than he does.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. With his death came new life, as it were, to the plot, because it made the plot more interesting. But yeah, it's and
it's a little surprising that he would die that quickly. Like you said, as much emphasis as they put on him in the first episode, like yeah.
I was going to mention, though, one of the best episodes, for me at least, is probably episode 4. Because that's when we really have the dynamics. Because the major thing is that Frank gets a new ally named Micro.
Right.
Who's a closet case nerd, conspiracy theorist, dude.
He's he's an NSA analyst.
Yeah, so of course he's like a computer expert and everything.
Of course he's super smart.
Yeah, but it's like this weird frat brother relationship where Frank is like the dumb musclehead, but he's not that he's not like street.
He's not
dumb.
A meathead. He's not a complete meathead.
No,
like
really,
he understands how to handle himself. He understands like what Micro's telling him and stuff that they're trying to get done. But it's like the first thing he thinks about is, okay, I have to kill someone, more so than let's wait and try to figure out things, or let's try to be diplomatic about something. Like, Frank's like, no, I can just make it easier, and let me just kill him and make it easier.
Like their weird bullying antagonistic relationship is one of the highlights of the season. And
I love I don't know if it was one moment, sorry to interrupt you, it was one moment like later on in the season, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a conversation where they're having and they're talking about how many people Frank Castle's killed. And Frank, it's like, just like you said, like that old frat kind of like beer chugging attitude, like, yeah, that's as many as they know of. Like, it's just that kind of attitude it seems throughout the entire season with those two.
They just have so much good banter. It's like they're absolutely like in episode 4, which I nicknamed the Frank and the Furious because of the chase. By the way, me and my roommate, one of the things we kept dropping is we kept saying, like, when someone's about to get horribly just maimed by the Punisher, we say, "You're about to get franked."
Oh.
Which led to one of my favorite stupid puns, because later on I said, "What will happen when Frank Castle, the Punisher, retires? Is he going to have a talk show? But will it be a casual radio show where he interviews people called Frank Discussion? Or will he talk to people on the street while having hot dogs? Franks with Frank." It was just a hurricane of Frank puns.
Oh man, that's too much.
And then there's his surreal stage play where he does a series of monologues called "I'll Be Frank."
Wow. Oh man!
Obviously, you can tell I had a lot of fun with this series, just the fact that the main character's name is Frank. But yeah, like I said, once it got going, I don't think there was any real lulls. It was just
that first episode was a little bit of a struggle. I will agree.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Like I know a lot of people didn't really like the first episode, and I'll totally give it that. That's probably the biggest weakness. And then the other thing is just going to be how certain things play with you, especially because we haven't touched on this one bit. A major secondary character is this vet suffering from severe PTSD.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I was going to bring that up. To me, I think that was one of the biggest highlights to me of the whole this whole series so far was the handling of post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to vets coming back. Like, they really made sure you understand a lot of I know, of course, it's a little bit more exaggerated than it is, but it's still that reality connected to it, and what people are struggling with, and what people even not just even mental, but also physical. As we see, one of the characters has a physical disability that really plays a big role in the other characters' transformation as we see him throughout the season. And I was actually disappointed in the way his story arc concluded, because I kind of wanted to see him go over to the end with it, you know. Like,
yeah, I mean that's the one thing. Like, they probably did it the way they did because they didn't see a way to fit in the character after a certain point.
Right.
But like at the same time, it was like a bit of a shame that it ended how it did. Although it's still, it fit in with the plot, and like he as a secondary character worked a lot better than some other. Like I mentioned Simpson from Jessica Jones earlier.
Right.
Like, he felt very kind of shoehorned in. This character didn't, because he had so many natural connections to other characters.
Mm-hmm.
And like probably the other really awkward bit was just oh shoot, what the heck is her name? I'm blanking on her name now. The DHS agent.
Oh yeah.
Hang on, I'm actually gonna look it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up too.
Dinah Madani.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I knew it was M something, and I couldn't remember her first name at all. But her family, like her mom in particular plays a really big bit in episode 1, and then she's just kind of there, like she's moral support. The first one, it feels like
it was one part like I think it was like the 5th or 6th. No, it was after the big Fast and the Furious moment, and she's just like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna let you see my daughter." Like, it was just so awkward, and the way she had this, like you said, this more profound and genuine moment at the beginning, and now just like then she's just randomly here, you know, just to be that character.
Yeah. Well, at least she was played by a very talented actress.
Oh yeah, she did a great job. Especially
did you recognize the voice?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna try and pronounce her name. Shoshre Adashilu.
I believe so. That's
I might have butchered that a little bit.
Shore Adashilu. Yeah, I believe is how you say it.
Yeah, she's in so much stuff. I mean, we brought up Mass Effect earlier. She's in Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell because she's got a very distinct voice.
Very much so.
And she's a very good actress.
Oh, great. Like I said, I wish she actually had a lot more for her to work with during the series.
Well, there's a bunch There's a bunch of actors in here that was like, it would have been nice to see them a little more, but, well, everyone did fine.
Yeah, I think it was a really good series. Yeah. I think they did. They gave pretty much everybody a lot to work with, and everyone that was given the screen time necessary delivered.
Now, here's a question for you.
Okay.
If you had to pick, what Marvel series would you say off the top of your head from Netflix is better than this one? Because I know, like, we're kind of split on if it's the best one.
Right. Actually, thinking about it, that's a good question, because I loved Luke Cage.
Yeah, but
yeah, but there, you know, especially when it comes to the end of it for me. And
yeah, wait,
Jessica Jones, the same thing. Like,
yeah.
Like the problem I think is a lot of the ways that both like Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, the purpose of it was really the setup for the Defender. So there was still that openness to it, where it didn't feel like a solid, complete season focusing solely on what we're trying to accomplish with this one character. Punisher is a different story.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things. Like, if this is the end of the Punisher spinoff, that will be fine.
Right.
Like Luke Cage, it didn't really end. Jessica Jones didn't really end. Daredevil season 2 didn't really end.
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil season 1 kind of ended.
yeah, but it still felt open enough that you're going to have a second season.
Yeah, and Iron Fist definitely didn't end.
No, not a bit.
Of course it didn't.
Wow, I mean, actually, after saying it the way we've said it right here, you might be right. I think maybe people are actually right about this, that The Punisher is the best Netflix Marvel show thus far.
Yeah, on the Netflix series. I mean, you know, Netflix, there's a great there's still a greater debate when you bring in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this other stuff.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I would definitely hold it up there for sure. I mean, Daredevil season 1 I really loved, of course, especially because they were doing so much experimental stuff with him when it came out. But of course, the big infamous one-take fight from the end of episode 2 of Daredevil.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, we both recommend Punisher. And do you think
I will tell you right now, if you can't handle a lot of violence and blood, do not bother.
Oh yeah, it's true. It's very bloody.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm like, I'm gonna watch this new show from Marvel. It's like and it's like, by the way, it's gonna be like a really gritty, just examination of PTSD, veterans, violence in general, conspiracies. It's like, Marvel.
It's dark and it's heavy. Yeah, it's not.
For people who thought Thor was too hilarious.
Yeah. If you felt like you need a complete opposite, if you just don't, if you watched Thor and felt, you know what, this is not the Marvel I'm looking for, here you go.
But James, here's a question.
Okay.
What if you're trying to find something from DC?
Well, I want a red glowing eye. I want a red suit that nobody can really explain as to how someone with no real money or capabilities could make this suit. And I want a mustache to be digitally removed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want.
I see. So you didn't like Murder on the Orient Express that much. I kid, of course. We're talking about... Hey, Murder on the Orient Express. It had that giant sweet mustache from Kenneth Branagh. Yeah. Honestly, I kind of wish we were talking about that movie, but we have to talk about Justice League.
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, we gave Thor the spotlight last time, and right after Thor came out, here's Justice League. So.
Absolutely. And okay, I want to qualify something up front because. Well, you can kind of tell from the side there that we're probably not going to be entirely glowing about this, but I want to make something very, very clear. I'm a huge DC fanboy.
He's a DC guy. I'm a Marvel guy. So.
I will happily talk about Starro the Conqueror. I will happily talk about the entire spectrum of lanterns. I will happily talk about the fact that the very original Green Lantern was vulnerable to wood. And no, it doesn't mean he's vulnerable to a number 2 pencil. F off Big Bang Theory. It's because it was created back in it's a whole thing. It's based on the Starheart, and it originally.
Yeah, well, at least this movie gave you a treat. You saw the green light.
This is true. Yep. But I just want to make that clear that I've always been more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy when it came to comics, and so the criticism of the DC animated or cinematic universe, it has frustrated me quite a bit. Which is funny because some of the stuff I'm about to say about Justice League will surprise you, considering how. Because I mean, remember we've had Man of Steel, which, as you can imagine, I had some issues with.
Right.
I didn't have a problem with certain scenes as much as I think people did. Like I appreciated the debate Pa Kent had with Clark in Man of Steel about whether or not he should save people to keep himself secret.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an attempt to try and show he doesn't have the answers.
Right.
But I did not like the ultimate tornado incident that followed. It's like that was not a great way to build to that. That scene was actually kind of dumb for a lot of reasons. But I appreciated what they were trying to do, and we did get probably one of the most Superman fights ever on film at the time.
Right.
So I'll totally give it that. I mean, I'm not going to say that movie had no merits. Absolutely not. No, it was they tried a bunch of stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. Then we got Batman v Superman.
Okay. We'll just move along.
Yeah. I do not want to spend all my time talking about that.
Yeah, we'll just move
Suicide Squad, which
we'll just move along here.
Yeah. I like Harley Quinn. Hey, it actually made me like Jai Courtney for once.
Ah, there you go.
Because I've hated a lot of Jai Courtney's roles, but I haven't necessarily hated the actor, and he was actually kind of good in Suicide Squad. But moving on. I just wanted to throw that out there, just in case Jai Courtney ever comes up on this podcast again. Want it to be known, I thought he was a good Captain Boomerang. But then we got Wonder Woman, which did you like it?
Solid.
Yeah, it was it still had some issues, but I mean they were a lot less pronounced.
Compared to what we had to sit through for the last two, I guess maybe low expectations made it a lot better than it was in reality, but still a really good movie.
I would say it held up about as well as the first Captain America movie does.
Oh,
and I quite enjoyed the Captain America films in the Marvel Universe.
Right.
Like, Captain America is one of my favorite in the Marvel Cinematic Heroes right now. Because I think Chris Evans pretty much nails that character.
He does a great job.
Yeah, and I think Gal Gadot does a really good job as Wonder Woman. And that carries through to this film as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, after all this time, I think they finally found that person that really embodies Wonder Woman the best.
Absolutely. And, okay. before we get too much into the characters and everything, I thought about this one bit I wanted to say about the movie.
Okay.
My thoughts about Justice League. Okay, here we go. The poster promised us that they would unite the Seven. Came up short.
Yeah, because I'm actually looking at the poster right now.
It says Unite the Seven, right?
And not only that, but they have logos.
Yeah.
Associated with each person that was supposed to be a part of it.
How many logos are there?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually.
Right.
Let's see.
Unite the Seven. There's 6 of them. That's literally a setup for several bad jokes. Like, what was it? There's a Black Adder joke where it's like, and our next comedy act will be the Three Twerps, where the main joke is there's only 2 of them.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, well.
There you go.
I know. Oh, and for the record, in the comics, just to once again, I'm doing this without looking. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, Barry Allen, Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter. Those were the original 7.
Right.
There. And in the video games, no. I'm not gonna. Yeah, but so in this case we got Batman, Wonder Woman, Barry Allen, Flash.
Yeah.
So we got that at least. Although we'll get to that. We got our Aquaman. Then we got Cyborg, who is someone DC's really been trying to push since the.
You know, I was going to ask you that because you, like I said, you're a big DC guy compared to me. Like, what is the obsession with Cyborg now?
Ooh, I can. It's a simple matter of pretty much every 5 to 10 years or so, DC really tries to push a diversity character to be like their big diversity character. And I'm not saying it's only for diversity's sake, but it is absolutely a big part of it.
Because like Cyborg brings nothing to the table.
Well, yeah, because Cyborg is one like they for a long time they were obsessed with using the Jon Stewart Green Lantern when they do a Green Lantern adaptation.
Right. Which
is perfectly fine because Jon Stewart's a great character in his own right. Mm-hmm. You know, I got no problem with pushing him. I got no problem with what was one of the other ones they pushed Steel for a while.
Right.
Like back in the 90s, the regular human super.
I definitely remember that. I actually do remember that.
Steel got his own movie.
Yeah, that's why I remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though the character was kind of ridiculous, just because, like, first of all, his name was even more on the nose than most other, like, you know, DC is infamous for on the nose names.
Right.
Like, what was it? There's the Poison Cloud guy whose last name is Nimbus. You know, Edward Nygma is the Riddler. You know.
Right.
You have all these on-the-nose names, and then it's, in this case, it's John Henry Irons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Cyborg has been, I think since 2011, it might have been it's not that long, like, basically since the 2011 reboot, I think, Cyborg's been pushed as a founding member of the Justice League to make the founding of the Justice League a little more diverse.
Right.
You know, they've been off and on about trying to make Martian Manhunter identify as being African American descent.
I mean, I see the point, I see the understand, I see the reason, but man, that character though, like he's just Frankenstein. He's just Frankenstein that talks.
Yeah, that's really
it.
Yeah, and then we got and then Superman, spoiler alert, does return in this movie.
Oh, you don't have to worry about saying spoiler because they got the Superman logo in the freaking poster.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
So, I mean, they tell you right there, don't worry, he's coming back. Like,
what? Much like the video game, Superman died and returned? Had that in the Super Nintendo. Death and Return of Superman. It'd be real stupid if Superman didn't come back to life. But, okay, there's so much to unpack with this, and we're already starting to run low on time, but there's so much to unpack with this film. Some good, some bad. Like,
did you mention your favorite character, Aquaman?
Honestly, no, Aquaman's not my favorite character. It's still...
Oh, you're telling me you didn't care for Aquaman who doesn't even care about the ocean. The Aquaman that literally walks while drinking a pint and throws the bottle into the sea.
Yep. I didn't mind that. Here's the thing I didn't like about it. It's a continuity. Like honestly, Jason Momoa, I was really dreading his performance as Aquaman. He was fine because you know what, they made it work. I don't recall an Aquaman like this. I'm going to say this now. I don't recall an Aquaman like this, and of course, someone's now going to correct me on that because I've touted myself as a DC fan. But you know, Aquaman's one of my weaknesses. Although I can Oh man, the stuff I could tell you about Aquaman, but I won't. But here's the thing that bugs me: he goes to Atlantis, and like it's not clear if he's been there before or not.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's weirdly ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's
even when Batman confronts him about it, it's like
yeah.
There's no real response. And then, like you said, when we get to that point, it just doesn't make much sense.
We still haven't really talked about the plot, so real quick, here's what happens.
Not that much to talk about, really.
No. Well, a rock band from the 80s shows up, wants to get a bunch of things. So Batman's like, hey, we need to stop them from getting the things. And then for various reasons, the bad guy gets the things. So they have to fight the bad guy to make sure they don't use the things to destroy the planet.
There you go. That's a great way of saying it.
Which is still pretty much what the plot for Infinity War is probably going to be. Except instead of Batman, it'll be Iron Man.
Yeah, and instead of
Mother Box,
it'll be just.
I mean, I'm sure there's a band called Thanos out there somewhere.
More than likely.
Yeah. Anyway, so Steppenwolf, who, to connect you to the DC mythology, he's not the most obscure in my opinion, but okay. So Steppenwolf is a member of the Apocalypse storyline, which is part of the New Gods, which I believe were a 1970s creation. It's going to be important. So Apocalypse is the planet ruled by Darkseid, who is basically the DC ultra-villain. Mm-hmm. Much like how Thanos is the ultra-villain for Marvel most of the time. I would totally... Like, Darkseid's absolutely, like, the guy. He's basically got eye beams that can just erase you from existence.
Oh, yeah.
And his objective is to find the anti-life equation, which will basically let him undo all life in the universe and remake it in his image.
Peter just revealed that Phoenix Wright was going to be a part of the next movie.
Why not?
They're going to write him into being a part of the new Justice League.
Look, if they can't even have 7 members of the Justice League, they might as well throw a Lordy in there from a Capcom game. I'm perfectly fine with that at this point.
Oh, man, I would just love to see Phoenix Wright just yell objection while Darkseid's trying to shoot him with eye lasers.
That would be weird. No, the objection deflects the eye beams? Sorry. What the hell is his eye beams called? The Omega something? The Omega...
Yeah, I really can't remember.
The Omega Maneuver or something like that? I don't know. It's the Omega something. Anyway, so Steppenwolf is the villain of the film, and he is Darkseid's... I believe he's his uncle or something like that. But
Darkseid's uncle in the comics.
Yeah.
But they never really say in the movie.
Yeah. Because for some reason they want to be really ambiguous about the fact that they're dealing with freaking Apocalypse and Darkseid. So Steppenwolf is like, he's usually one of the generals of Apocalypse, alongside characters like Granny Goodness and Vilma Wunderbar. Yes, those are real characters from the Apocalypse mythos. Because it was the 1970s, and if you make fun of the names too much, Jack Kirby fans will kill you. Anyway. So Steppenwolf and his army of parademons, the Apocalypse henchmen, are after the 3 mother boxes on Earth.
No, just a side point. First of all, I actually love the fact that when I was watching it, since I played so much Injustice 2, when I heard mother boxes and they were saying, you know what mother boxes contain? The first thing that popped in my head was like, they contain gear. They contain gear that you can put on each character.
Mother boxes they've always been a weird part of the mythos in DC, but it makes sense that they're going to have a MacGuffin of their own to kind of do their own version of the Infinity Gems, just to compare it to Marvel again. I mean, obviously, I know they're very different things. Please, I'm just really dreading if we're going to get comments, it's going to be stuff about that. But it makes sense to use the mother boxes as a MacGuffin if you need a MacGuffin for your movie. And you don't understand what I'm talking about when I say
I got you.
Okay, hopefully people understand what I'm... But so apparently he did this thousands of years ago, but then a last alliance of men and elves. Yeah. that scene, oh man. It was like the comic book equivalent of the last alliance from Lord of the Rings, and I actually really loved it.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, that's where we get our Green Lantern cameo.
Right.
Because we get a Green Lantern, we get Atlanteans, we get Amazons, we get all kinds of like classic DC lore characters.
Right.
Armies.
Everything just put together, and they're just fighting. And
that might have been one of my favorite parts of the movie, even though
that really was a great part. Like, because not only did it touch on the lore, but it was actually done in a very cool fashion.
Yeah, and the CG actually looked pretty good.
Yeah,
like I made fun of it for feeling like, the Lord of the Rings Last Alliance can Sauron, but no, it totally worked.
Which can be said about some parts later in the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the whole thing is because Superman died in a previous movie, humanity is now sufficiently sad enough to allow for Steppenwolf to return and try and get the mother boxes.
I love the fact that Superman's death made everyone so easily susceptible to violence and criminal activity.
So World War II didn't count?
Oh.
I'm just saying, this is the problem when you introduce this plot point.
No, but I'm just saying, like, when they had Superman, like, at the beginning of the movie, they're just showing, like, this world is falling apart since Superman died. Like, nobody had any idea of doing these things when Superman was alive.
I know, like, this is easily one of the weaker parts of the premise is that, like, I appreciate what they're trying to do, of course, because right. Superman is a symbol of hope, and if he's dead, the problem is that I didn't really think they fully set him up properly as the symbol of hope. I mean,
no, not a bit.
Because they did the whole religious thing to try and get that point across, but it didn't really work.
No, not a bit.
And ultimately, yeah, like it just didn't fly for me, which is funny because we're gonna get it when we get to Superman later on.
Okay, just a couple of things too about going back to Steppenwolf and just him being a character as a whole and being the antagonist of the movie, yep. Just being really bad. Did you laugh? And this was probably what hurt me the most when it came to actually accepting him as a big bad villain. When he was having one of the biggest first battles he has in the movie when he makes his appearance and he confronts the Amazonians is his little monologue when he says, "You will all love me." And I laughed a lot when I heard that because it was just so weird.
Yep. It didn't really seem like a line Steppenwolf would even say, honestly. I've never
right.
Like, that felt like something more like Glorious Godfrey or maybe Granny Goodness would say. Like, I do want, like, because, I mean, we have to acknowledge one of the reasons this film may not be together well could easily be down to the fact that we had to change the directors,
mm-hmm.
and they had to reshoot a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Which will explain why some of the CGI doesn't look great.
Especially later in the movie, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really want to harp on it too much, but...
Right. It is what it is.
Yeah, especially because it's a visual thing, and we need to really show pictures to show what we're talking about.
Right.
And
if you look on YouTube, you can easily find it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You can easily find it, don't worry.
It's not, yeah, but, and then, of course, you've got two different styles of direction and everything, which is a shit, because, like, Joss Whedon is very much about banter, and while he does good sweeping shots, he's really, like, I don't know if he's really that experimental direction-wise.
Mm.
Like, he does fine, absolutely. I'm not saying he's a bad director by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, Zack Snyder, for good or for bad, he's super experimental. Like,
right.
To praise Batman v Superman for a second, he's very stylish with explosions. Because that one in particular really showed what he can do with explosions, because he'll start with the explosion in one spot and then slowly show the reaction to the explosion from further and further away. Which is a very interesting way of doing an explosion reaction, because otherwise it's just normally like explosion once and then that's the end.
Right, and that's it.
Yeah, like if you really want to milk a big explosion, that was a very interesting way to do it, and I thought he did a good job with that. So there you go. We said something nice about Zack Snyder, just to make that clear. And it was about a movie that we didn't really want to talk about. But, yeah. No, Steppenwolf was not a good villain.
Yeah. Now, also, I have to ask you about potentially the character that I think a lot of people are kind of on the fence about. I don't know how you feel about him. I know I definitely got my share of him by the end of the movie. How was your feeling on the take on the Flash?
Mixed results.
Okay.
I didn't hate him.
Okay.
I mean, I'm annoyed a bit because, like, I think I pointed this out to you before. They've been writing Barry Allen pretty much probably since the 2011 reboot.
Mm-hmm.
They've been increasingly making Barry Allen more like Wally West was,
mm-hmm.
which has the unfortunate side effect of whenever Wally West shows up, he tends to have to be something different, and then he just usually comes off as annoying. Like this happened on the Flash TV show where Wally West was really kind of a terrible character. He grew, but I mean, like when he started, he was just basically whiny, and it's like there was no charm to the character. He's just a whiny kid who wants to go fast, and like that's not really Wally West. But the problem is that, they took a lot of Wally West's personality and gave it to Barry Allen, so it's like, well, what does he have left? whining. But I mean, in this case, obviously, it's just berries, so you don't have that issue really.
Right.
You know, but obviously, I was like, I'm bitter. But going beyond that, his costume just looked weird.
Yeah, that was really a weird
I understood the design choice they went with, but you pointed this out in your earlier comment. It's like, how can he afford this?
Yeah, I mean, he was like talking about like fishing line, like it was just like, really weird.
Yeah,
like the items they were saying and the stuff that they found, like how this guy could put it all together and actually make a suit.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least Batman, which is probably to me one of the best lines in the whole movie, when they asked Batman like, "What's your superpower?" He's like, "I'm rich." Like that explains exactly why Batman has the suits and stuff that he has. He's rich.
Yeah, that felt like a Whedon line.
Yeah,
it might have not been. If it wasn't, kudos. But I mean, that felt like a Joss Whedon joke.
Yeah. But I mean, it made sense. It was kind of a jerk move. It was kind of a jerk thing, but it's true. It's like, I'm rich. That's how I'm so good at what I do.
Absolutely.
Flash, on the other hand, this kid's living in a warehouse. Like, I don't understand exactly where he was getting the kind of money and the ability to even do this kind of stuff. So,
and he's apparently dealing with some kind of neurological disorder.
Yeah.
I mean, some of his jokes worked, some of them didn't. I don't know. I'm sure the Whedon fanboys are going to say, "Oh, it's because Joss Whedon made some of his jokes work," or some of the Snyder fans will be like, "Oh, the ones that were really annoying were the Whedon ones because he writes annoying." I don't know. Some of his jokes worked, some of them didn't. He was still ultimately a breath of fresh air, but he did feel like he needed to take a chill pill of some kind.
I think they should have stuck him with Cyborg more, and it made it a lot better.
Yeah, because Cyborg, he was plot relevant at least.
Right, he was, but that was about it.
Yeah, I know he didn't have a lot of personality, which is a shame because Cyborg can have a pretty funny, like, one of the greatest moments in comic history is when Cyborg goes evil at one point, and then Beast Boy, his best friend, like, everyone's trying to get through to Cyborg and appeal to his humanity to get him stopped, and then Beast Boy just comes in and shouts, "Hey, Rust Bucket, let go of the frickin' moon!" Like, everyone else is being all nice, and then he just drops in with that. That's friendship right there.
There you go.
I would have appreciated if they tried to give Flash and Cyborg a Cyborg and Beast Boy type relationship, but
yeah, that'd be great. I think that would work.
Just some kind of banter like that.
Yeah.
But sadly, no. No, yeah, Flash was Wonder Woman was great.
Yeah, I mean, she was what she was.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't have as much to work with, but I mean, it's an ensemble piece.
I think that was the thing. Like, it wasn't that much for her. Like, what she did was really good, but it wasn't as much. Like, if you, especially compared to coming off of Wonder Woman,
yeah, exactly.
The actual movie. That's the thing. Like, she had a great spotlight there, and it just felt kind of lacking here, which is understandable because you're trying to get over X amount of characters compared to just getting over one.
Well, this is always going to be. They probably shouldn't have tried to rush into it so much, but they did.
Right, that fear of being behind Marvel and trying to be like the Avengers, I think that was the biggest problem with. You couldn't have an opportunity to really showcase each individual character because, like, your fear coming in with Aquaman, that could have been completely quenched if you had an Aquaman movie before this.
Absolutely. If I'd found out that there was a really good Aquaman movie, I'd been like, "Oh, F a duck." There you go. I'm engaging in self-censoring because we should probably bleep it if I do actually curse. What a shock. This movie made me feel like cursing, although, like I said, I did enjoy it. Like, Batfleck was great.
Mm-hmm.
He it's funny because everyone hated that casting choice, and he's really good.
No, he works. It works for it.
He's probably a better Batman than a Bruce Wayne, but I mean, most of them tend to be better at one or the other anyway.
Right.
Like, Val Kilmer is like, he's Bruce Wayne. It's like, he's just like this brooning emo millionaire. What the hell?
It just works. It just works for him. But
yeah, no, he was really good as Batman, though, right?
Right.
And then, like, yeah, in this case, Ben Affleck, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like, he isn't quite so charming when he's a millionaire, but when he's Batman, it works.
It just works.
Yeah, and of course
No, I was just saying, I think it was a solid outing for DC here. It wasn't the best movie, but it was a lot better than I think a lot of people expected it to be. I just feel sorry for the fact that it's not doing too well financially right now.
Yeah, we talked about this before we started. It doesn't look like it's hit 500,000 worldwide yet, which is a shame because it's probably the second best DC movie so far.
Yeah. So.
And I mean, like I said, I think on Rotten Tomatoes it got like a 40-something, which is probably about right. Maybe a little higher.
Yeah, I would give it at least maybe about a high 50s at the least for me.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking, yeah, probably like if I had to give it a number, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, especially considering, most of the track record. I mean, I didn't, and of course,
and also considering, like you brought up earlier, the problems that they had when it came from production.
Oh, the fact that there's anything watchable about this is a freaking miracle.
It's a miracle. It really is.
Oh, and we need to wrap up soon, but we didn't really touch on Superman. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So just so people understand what happened, they shot the movie.
Mad Monster.
They shot the movie. Then Henry Cavill went to go shoot Mission Impossible 6. I believe we're on 6.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a mustache grown for the movie. And there was a contract in his movie with Paramount that he had to have that mustache. And then Warner Brothers wanted to do reshoots, and they were willing to pay Paramount a lot of money to let him shave that mustache. But Paramount said no. So they CGI'd the mustache off in scenes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is kind of obvious in some shots.
Yeah. Especially when he's like all teeth and very thin lip and just like major gums. It's just like so weird. It's for a good way of putting it. If anybody's listening has ever seen that, like those animations where you have like a still figure or like a hand and they like splicing a mouth and like googly eyes and everything and act like the hand is really a person's face talking. That's how his mouth looked. Like it was literally.
When he was in motion, it wasn't always that bad.
Right.
But there were still shots essentially where you saw it and it's like, guys, something's wrong with his face.
But I actually was tolerable of that more so than Superman Man Monster that he was.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that I really liked, though. At the end of the movie, Superman is Superman.
Right.
They finally understood how to do Superman. And I probably would have been happier if it felt like this was more of a proper arc. It didn't really feel like an arc. Right. But you know what? They still got the right ending to the arc.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, because, like I said before, I felt they went off the kilter with the religious allegories and not knowing how to save people.
Before we close out with Justice...
Sorry?
Before we close out with Justice League, I have to ask you, what about the family that they just randomly kept showing?
I didn't care.
It was just so weird to me. I thought there was going to be so much more to that. And there was
nothing. It didn't matter.
So much screen time.
I know. Look, the film wasn't very efficient. I mean, the fact that they had so much stuff that was deleted just to get it down to an even 120.
Yeah.
They clearly could have edited it better.
Another thing, I hate to keep going on because, like I said, we need to wrap up here. But that was another thing we talked about with Thor was the fact they felt like that could have actually used more time.
Yep.
And this, shockingly, to me, is the same way, that this could have used more time. But
or it could have been edited better. Well, did you hear they cut out Willem Dafoe's character entirely?
Yeah. That was...
Because he was supposed to cameo at Atlantis or something like that.
Yeah.
But he was completely cut out of the movie, and it's like, you cast Willem Dafoe, you had him shoot scenes, and then you didn't feature him? It's the exact same thing that happened with Amazing Spider-Man 2. Just saying. Right. They had Shailene Woodley playing MJ.
Yeah, whatever Blu-ray digital release this is going to be a pretty epic one because they got so much on the cutting room floor they can put on there.
Yeah, and like not even thinking about the fact that they basically have two separate movies that got combined into one.
Yeah, that was the big thing. It was supposed to be two movies. So.
Yeah, and it was more seamless at least than some other ones.
And so much is supposed to have happened in this thing that it didn't.
It's funny because you describe all the things that didn't really work in this movie, but it isn't as bad as some other examples of this type of thing we can name by far.
Right.
Like it's a weird, not success. I mean, especially if the finances don't improve. Not to take a. I don't want to feel like I'm poking the dead horse, as it were.
Right.
But I mean, because like it really was. I don't know about optimistic, but it showed potential.
Right. Yeah. It feels like they're finally on the right track.
Yeah,
But I think like Wonder Woman started that though.
yeah, Wonder Woman had it. Like I said, we got a Superman who was pretty good. We never really had a problem with Ben Affleck as Batman.
Yeah, Batman's really not
Aquaman
good.
was shockingly good. Flash was okay. Cyborg didn't have a personality, but maybe he'll get one in the next movie. I mean, if we get a solo movie called Cyborg, I mean, you think people are really going to go see it unless they get at least one more team-up movie first where we get more personality?
Yeah, there's no way Cyborg can be on his own right now.
No, that's really the thing.
And so Aquaman can actually pull it off now after this performance.
Oh, absolutely. Aquaman can pull
off a solo Aquaman movie. And Flash, maybe? Not this style, though. Like, they would really need a lot of work, though. They would need some really good villains. I don't... Really, no, they couldn't. They couldn't. Never mind.
They need to team him up with classic speedster character Max Mercury.
Yeah, never mind.
What, James, don't you want to talk about Starro the Conqueror?
Oh.
Yeah? What about Matter Transmutator? Or Simon? You want to talk about Simon? What about Clarion the Witch Boy?
Oh, man.
Actually, shoot, I'm going a little more mainstream. These characters showed up in Young Justice. All right. But Starro the Conqueror? Wouldn't you prefer the Justice League fight a giant starfish? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. I would hate to think how they would even turn it to looking like it would. Like, what would it look like?
It would probably look like the Green Lantern movie.
Wow.
Yeah. That movie crushed my soul, by the way, because Green Lantern... Guy Gardner's my favorite DC hero. And it's like, we're never going to get a Guy Gardner movie. Because they did this. You ruined it. You ruined Green Lantern for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
I want my Guy Gardner movie, damn it.
All you're going to get is Green Lantern pseudo appearances throughout Justice League from now on.
I'll take it. Hey, it's the One Ring to rule them all.
Thanos might have a word with you.
Oh, he can have a word with whoever he wants. Stupid Josh Brolin. No, I'm hyped for Infinity War, and I'm hoping something good comes out of this Justice League thing. Maybe we'll get a good Green Lantern movie. See what happens.
Fans alive, so now we have hope.
Yep. All right, I think we're well overdue to wrap up. So, anything you want to add, James?
No, just solid movie. Pretty average, but better than what it could have been. Would
you say go see it on the big screen? Because I'm mixed on that.
That is, I would actually wait. Like, yeah. If you got a small screen, you get, especially when the Blu-ray comes out and they have all the extra stuff, because I can imagine a director's cut version being released, and I think that'd probably be the way to go.
And bad CG usually looks better on the small screen.
True that.
Saying, I mean, like I said, some of the CG, like that scene at the beginning was amazing, and they clearly put a lot of money into that scene. Now, if only they could have put the same amount of money into all the other scenes. I'm worried we're going to sound really mean on this. Like, seriously, it was fine.
It was a solid movie. Like
absolutely, it really was.
It might not leave a lasting impression when it comes to the end of the year, but it's better than expected.
Absolutely. But like I said, they were supposed to unite the 7, and they were down a number.
Yeah.
Maybe Alfred was number 7.
Because Alfred has gotten young, or Batman's gotten really old.
Yep. Because clearly Alfred was numb, and so was Batman.
Yeah.